Hi guys, Chief here. This is going to be my attempt at making a guide video, I guess, for my Gw2 WvW. I guess we'll start off with the gear. I'm running full Dragon's gear on my armour and my weapons. This is the new stat from the End of Dragons expansion. It's very similar to Marauder's gear, except you lose some precision and you gain ferocity instead. That's the main difference, which is pretty good for this build. Although it only says 38% chance here, that'll go way up with Fury and certain trait lines, but we'll get into that a bit later. And you can see that my trinkets are diviners, so we want good boon uptime, because this is essentially a boon beast but for a Willbender, so call it a Boonbender, I guess. But you see, we do pretty good ferocity. This power will stack up with other traits as well. You'll gain might here, you'll gain might here, and yeah, this works for might as well, so we'll go all into that in a bit. But yeah, don't think these stats look pretty low. These will all get buffed up pretty quickly, and you'll have a high uptime on all the boons that's gonna buff these. So don't worry if you think this looks too low, or if this doesn't look like it's got enough power. And your toughness basically will have permanent protection, so don't worry about that either. So we'll go. I use the runes of durability on my armour. Again, gives me a bit more toughness, gives me a bit more health, because guardians have the lowest health pool out of all the classes, I believe. So that's good. And as I say, because we're so much boon uptime, all the passives on the 6th rune, that'll last longer. So that's where I start there. On my weapons, we have the Sigil of Rage and the Sigil of Cleansing, because in this current meta, when there's so much Conde out there, you want as much cleanse as possible. All this Selly Conde harbs, Selly Rangers, Selly Willbenders as well. You just want as much cleanse as possible. So Sigil of Rage is almost a must on this build for Executioner's Calling, because this skill hits like a truck and you want it to go off as fast as possible, because it's pretty slow without quickness, so that's pretty key there. And on my defensive weapon set, just your standard energy and cleansing. I say defensive, it hits like a truck as well, but we'll get into that in a minute. Now we'll go for traits. So I run Radiance, Virtues, Willbender. So Radiance, you have an option here. You can run either Resolution, or you can either run Healer's Resolution, or Right Hand Strength. Either or is fine. This one, pretty pointless. You'll have enough Fury uptime, and you don't really inflict that much burning, so I would ignore that. Yeah, so either one of these is fine. I prefer this one just because it lowers the cooldown on my sword skills, gives me a bit more precision, a bit more power, but this one's perfectly fine. I think a lot of Selly players will run this one, which is still good. Yeah, passive F1 recharges on kill, pretty handy if you're in a bigger group fight, because F1 hits pretty hard. Some of these, I mean, this is more of a Selly build here, but can be run with power. I used to run this on my core Guardian with power, with a torch. Torch skills hit pretty hard even when you're not conditioned. This one, it can work. I usually just wait and use the immobilize on my sword. You don't really need to run this. This is where you get a good chunk of your damage from as well, so I usually run that. And pretty much every single thing you do will give you resolution, because you're running virtues, so resolution, 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 resolution. Probably going to convert something to resolution. Resolution. So yeah, you're going to have perma 10% damage. This, when you hit them with your F1, you're going to start them burning, you're going to gain your increased ferocity, and you're going to gain an extra 10%. So that immediately puts that up to 48%. That's why I said don't worry about that. Also this, resolution increases your chances to critically hit, so again, permanent resolution. So it went from 48, so that'll take it up to 68. No, sorry, higher than that, because it's a 25%, not 20%. So, and you're gonna constantly gain might, and because all the concentration, the might will last longer, so you gain more might stacks. So, pretty standard stuff here for Willbender. Again, virtues. You've got your first one here, adds 20% when you have Aegis. This didn't really work that well on any other classes, whereas Willbender it does, because your F3 will pulse Aegis every 5 hits. So every fifth hit when you have your F3 running will give 20% damage on that attack. So that's a good synergy there. Whereas other classes you could only hit it once and that would be it. Whereas this you can actually get it pulsing if you do enough hits. So that's pretty good. Again, this is what gives you all that resolution for your permanent reso uptime, and it gives you 25% endurance, duration. I've seen people take this just to pure need for damage. It works. I run it on my Dragon Hunter. It can hit hard, but I like to play a little bit more defensively, so I like this skill. And because you have 2 charges of this, you're removing 6 conditions in total. As I say, the current meta, Celestial, you want to remove as many conditions as possible. And that's why I run double sigil, I run this and this. Then moving on to the Grandmaster. This is a really awesome stun break, and it's what helps me start off my opening burst with F3. I'll show you the burst rotation, but yeah. The other stuff, this is not too bad if you very rarely see it, but there is a support Willbender out there, runs this, and I'll probably run this and this, these two here, for alacrity, and you can trigger that off your F2 if you're near people. It's a pretty niche build, but I've seen it work. So that's virtues. And on Willbender, we have power for power, just obviously raw power, because other two doesn't really concern us because of this build. This is an awesome miner, permanent 25% movement, always handy. You don't have to take up a rune slot for it. You don't have to run fireworks or such. This is where it's personal preference. If you want faster skills, I've seen some people run this just to get skills recharged quicker, perfectly viable. This, I like the Fury uptime, because believe it or not, without this trait, the only real source of Fury is this skill and this skill. Unless you're running Honor, with that you don't really have much uptime of Fury on a Willbender. So I like to take this so it triggers off my F1 and I start it right away, and then yeah, I have a lot of Fury now. This is also a really good trait line if you want to play a wee bit more defensively, but because we're running Save Yourself and we have F3 and we have Protector Strike, we pretty much have permanent protection anyway. Resistance is pretty handy, but let's say you get resistance for here, and resolution we have in abundance, so we don't really need any more of it. So I personally prefer this. This, you're going to be using all your F3, F2, F1s all the time, so you're going to have a pretty good uptime of this, and obviously you just follow it up by the extra damage because of the charges. As I say, people run the alacrity here sometimes just because they prefer it, but as I say, personal preference. I don't really see much use in this. It's yeah, I don't see the need, but if you can find a way to work, then make it work for you, man. So I guess we'll talk about my open and burst and what skills to use, etc. So normally before I go into any fight, I will pop off my save yourself for all the boons, because as I say, Boonbender, we want all the boons and all the uptime. Notably, the ones we really want here are your protection, fury, and resistance. Resistance is key to getting your burst off, because when you jump in, they're not gonna chill you, they're not gonna immobilize you, they're not gonna blind you. So yeah, you've got a higher chance of actually getting your burst off. So that's a really key boon there, is the resistance. The fury, obviously the 20% critical chance. It'll, as I say, that'll instantly put this up to over 70% when you actually go in with your first hit. When you go in, hit with your first hit, it'll probably be a critical hit, and this will trigger your sigil of rage, which gives us 3 seconds of quickness. Now this is really handy. This is why it's a must on this build, is because this skill here is your biggest hitting skill, but it has a very short range and it's very slow. So you want to trigger it off the back of advancing strike, because it immobilizes them. Until rage is up, this tends to miss relatively easily, so you want all your actions to be quicker. So this is key in this build. So I'll just show you the open and burst. So we go save yourself into F3 for all the stability because of this trait here. This is why this is pretty much a must as well, and it counts as a stun break. So we actually have 4 stun breaks on this build, so always a good thing. So we start off, save yourselves, into your F3, into sword 2 for the blindness and the fury, followed up by advancing strike to get them slowed and immobilized, and it still hits really hard. And all this should be done under quickness, so you get a quicker executioner's calling. So let me just go find someone to hit. So let's have a look at this. So we start off there. Yeah, and that's the burst there. Always do F1 before your zealot's defense, because if they run away, you can teleport to them with your Russian Justice, and then if they run away some more, you've got a bit of range to catch them with your sword. So that tends to be how the open and burst works, and as you can see, still got a bunch of boons, and I can still add more if I wanted. There we go. It's the boon uptime, there's the protection, and you'll get more protection when we switch to the defensive trait, the defensive set, which I will just show you now. So let's talk about the defensive weapon set. I run mace and I run focus, and I just have, as I said before, energy cleansing. This auto attack, really quite slow, it's not really useful, it's the rest of the skills that are useful. If you have got yourself some distance, if you're being a little bit running away, so pop this down, well, it'll start more regeneration, and if they come and attack you and you end up in here, it actually hits pretty hard if they stay in it. So yeah, just kick back, stay in your little field, let the regeneration, and you'll gain health pretty rapidly. Protector Strike, this is the bread and butter of your defensive set. This will add to your protection uptime, it will give you Aegis, and it will hit like a truck. I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos, but quite a lot of the time I finish people off with this because they don't really expect it. Just pop it. If you time it well, if you time it when they're coming in with a hit that they can't cancel, pop it and it'll just... I've hit people over 8k that are running Zerker gear and stuff with this skill. As I say, finished a lot of people off with it. They just don't expect it, they don't understand what it does, and it's kind of like a dark horse. No one really knows. Now we have your focus skills. This is a good reason why I run this over Greatsword. This is a range skill that when first triggered will just keep triggering until it runs out. And you can't dodge. You can dodge it once or twice, but then you've wasted dodges. So it will just keep ticking up, tick, tick, tick. And normally you'll have Fury, obviously, so this ticks up way more than that. And yeah, they can either waste 2 dodges, try to dodge 2 attacks, or they can just let it ride. I've killed quite a few thieves with this, because it still activates in stealth. So a lot of the times I'll just find a thief pop out of stealth dead, because of this skill. And for the 5th one is obviously the Shield of Wrath. This also hits like a truck if you don't get hit and you have Fury. It'll absorb 3 hits. Unfortunately, if you absorb the 3 hits, it disappears and it'll do no damage. But it keeps you protected, gives you 3 blocks. And yeah, people get quite frustrated because all they see is block, block, block. And also on the defense stuff, this is an evade frame. So if you see an attack coming, you can evade. You can use that instead of a dodge every now and again, but I would recommend try to hold off for any big condition bursts. And here's some examples in the build in action.
Take me down to the river, babe.